Welcome to ASA Presents, the American Staffing Association's weekly webinar series, held Tuesdays at 2. And you are here for Discovering Your Hidden Superpowers, how to leverage personality tests to create better teams. So if you know your Myers-Briggs and you know your results for other personality tests, it's not enough just to know them. You want to use them too. Use them to create better structure on the home front. But before we begin, let me hit a few housekeeping items. For those of you who require closed captions, simply give your mouse a wiggle when that Zoom menu appears, hit the CC icon and turn the transcript on or off. For those of you who have joined us for CE, if you hold an American Staffing Association credential, simply go to the American Staffing website, that's americanstaffing.net, to claim your CE for today's program, which is worth 1 continuing education credit. If you hold the SHRM certification, this program today is also SHRM approved and recognized. Simply go to the SHRM website, enter that activity ID you see here on the screen today, 23-72GUU, and you will earn 1 professional development credit for attending today's program. Do remember that we're in Zoom webinar, not in Zoom meeting. So the key difference is that our cameras are on, yours are off, and also that we have a separate and dedicated Q&A panel. At any time throughout the program, please don't hesitate to drop your question in that Q&A panel. It's to the left of the chat panel when you open your Zoom menu. And use the chat throughout the program to drop comments for one another, and also to answer questions if the presenter asks you a question. And you can also drop your LinkedIn there throughout the program. I will be sharing today's deck with you several times throughout the program there in the chat. It will be a downloadable PDF. If it doesn't appear for you or you're unable to download it, simply email me. I will share my email with you in that chat as well, and I'll send it to you after the program ends. And I'm absolutely delighted. I have been trying to get her booked for over a year to introduce to you today Amy Yakowski, founder and chief evolution officer of Painted Porch Strategies. Amy, we're absolutely delighted that you're here with us today. I hope you have a wonderful program.
Thank you so much, Hannah, and welcome ASA members. Thank you for joining us today for one of my absolutely favorite topics to talk about, which is you and the hidden superpowers that you can find within your team. So, do you ever wish that you had a superpower? Something that could make you a hero where you can be strong, maybe a little insightful? Well, since today's webinar is all about discovering your hidden superpowers and creating dynamic teams of heroes, I thought that we could start by getting in a little bit of a superhero mindset, if you don't mind. So my first question to you, and I would love for you to share it in the chat, is if you were a superhero, what might your top 1 or 2 superpowers or skills be? Please share them. For me, I definitely want the knowledge and wisdom of the most influential philosophers, and also the fighting skills of Buffy Summer Vampire Slayer, because she's got some moves. Oh, I love this. Nicole, healing. Heather, teleportation. We're going to talk about that more. Reading minds. I don't know, Devin, did you see that What Women Want movie with Mel Gibson? Sometimes that can backfire a little bit too. Ooh, super listening, Sierra. Yes, those are great. Okay, so now that you have your superpowers that you've identified, I want you to remember that every hero also has something or someone that can weaken them, their kryptonite, right? So what, if anything, might yours be if you were to be a superhero? What might weaken you? What might sap your energy or cause you to go a little bit too extreme in your powers? Negative Nellies. Yes, negative energy, 100%. For me, it would be a to-do list that literally never ends. It just, for everything you scratch off, just 2 or 3 more get added onto it than lack of coffee. I can agree with you, Heather. I have my as well. Okay, and then the last thing, just for fun, as a bonus, if you were to be a superhero, what might your superhero name be? And hello, Takesha, welcome. So for me, mine would be the Stoic Siren. That would be my superhero moniker if I had one. So now that all of us are in this superhero mindset, number one, I want you just to maybe sit a little taller, put your chest out a little bit more, because you are, in fact, today a superhero. Number one, for showing up to this, I'll be a little biased, wonderful webinar, but really because you have some innate powers within you that we just have to extract and shine a light on so that you can shine and you can help others on your team shine. Today, we're going to explore how you can use these superpowers that you have in really purposeful, productive, and collaborative ways. We're going to help you build a deeper understanding of what powers you up, what maybe stresses you out sometimes, or how others can bring out the best in you, and how you can do the same in them. But before we get started, full disclosure, I am a personality test junkie. You name it, I've probably taken it. Show of hands, who else has probably taken everything? Anagrams, Myers-Briggs, DISC, etc. Yep, if you've taken it along with me, yes, show of hands. So before we get into this new type of personality assessment that we're going to look at today, I want to feed a little bit of my curiosity here and know what some of your results might be for some of the ones that are the most standard. So the first that we have is Myers-Briggs. Myers-Briggs is probably one of the OGs, and that one has 16 different types of personalities that are out there. So Hannah, if you don't mind, let's launch that first poll and let's find out with Myers-Briggs, if you've taken it, are you more of an introvert or maybe a little bit more of an extrovert? Or maybe you've never taken it all, or you're like, it's a really long time, I have no idea. Ooh, we're getting some good responses here. It looks like right now extrovert is in the lead. I fully applaud those of you that said I just plumb forgot. All right, Hannah, it looks like we have a pretty good percentage of participation. Let's reveal what the results are. So it looks like it's about split as far as who is an introvert versus who's an extrovert. All right, so the next one on the list, I personally am an INTJ, although I usually forget what those letters mean because who's going to remember other than the I, right? The I or the E. All right, the next one up, one of our other favorites that we know and love and have maybe done in our personal or professional lives are DISC. Are you more dominant, more influential? Are you more steady? Are you conscientious? Or what I just learned about this past week, are you level, which means that you share a little bit, you have a balance across all of them, which our lovely and amazing Hannah Papp is actually a level. It's interesting, the percentage of people have never taken it. Now your curiosity is piqued, and I'm sure after this, you're going to go take it. All right. So we have, good participation. About 60-something% of you have replied. And it looks like we have a fairly decent balance here. Let's show the results, Hannah. Perfect. So for those results, it looks like, a little bit of a mix, the highest being conscientious, which I fully appreciate because I am not that. I am a high D. I'm a handful, just fair warning. And then the last one, which is my absolute favorite, and I think the one that probably leads to the most emotional and physical reactions in people and how they work with one another. That's right, your Hogwarts house. Are you a Gryffindor, a Slytherin, a Ravenclaw, or a Hufflepuff? Say it loud and say it proud. Or are you a muggle and you're not that into Harry Potter? Or are you like Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia and say, there is no such thing as magic? Shout out to my Ravenclaws. Yes. Ooh, we have a lot of Gryffindors. This is a good mix here we have. Although I always like to remind people that not all Gryffindors are brave, not all Slytherins are cunning, not all Ravenclaws are keen and sharp, and not all Hufflepuffs are just warm and smushy and lovable. They each have attributes of the others. All right, so let's look at our results here. It looks like the two leads are Gryffindor and Muggles, although I highly encourage you Muggles, bring a little bit of magic into your life, maybe explore it just for fun. And lastly, if you do want to laugh, here's a fun one. There's an article that Hannah's going to plop in the chat that actually ties your Myers-Briggs to your Hogwarts house if you just want to take it to that next level of personality test junkiness. Now, while I absolutely love taking all of these assessments to shed light on how I personally feel, think, or act, I've actually found that over time, they sometimes fall short, providing guidance on how they can better work in as a team, right? These assessments can sometimes become a box that we put ourselves in and can occasionally be an explanation or sometimes even an excuse for this is or why I simply can't work with someone else or get along with another person. I mean, for those of you who are Hogwarts fans, just ask a Slytherin and a Gryffindor to work together on a team, right? There's a lot of trust issues there. In fact, one particular personality test that I took, at the end of it at work, they gave me a card. This is literally the card they gave me. They gave me a card that I could put on my cubicle so that when people walked by my desk and they came up to talk to me, it was up to them to look at my card and figure out who I was before they spoke with me. I mean, how realistic is that? Don't go walk around in real life with signs. I mean, other than Hogwarts with all of their shirts, hats, and robes and whatnot. But we don't actually go around with signs telling people, I'm INTJ, I'm a high D. Enter with caution, right? When they talk to you. No, it's actually up to us to understand who we are and then have the insight and the skills to be able to navigate the world of everybody else, right? And this applies first and foremost to our teams, whether it's your work team, your family team, your friend team, or anybody else that you have in your work and your life. Yes, it's important for you to know what your strengths and struggles might be individually, but it's more important to understand how you can use them for good and not for evil, so that when it comes to understanding and supporting your fellow team members, you're equipped and you can be a hero to them. And how you can actually lean on their strengths when you maybe need support and maybe when you're a bit weakened. See, while we each have the skills, and often we think that others just need to stay in their little box, or if you want to say stay in their house or in their quadrant, it's really only when you truly work together as a team that critical problems can be spotted, those innovative solutions can get designed, and real lasting change can be achieved. And that's what we're here today. That's what it's all about. We are actually flipping the script on personality assessments to focus more on the we versus the me, right? So to set the stage for this shift, I want you to think about some of your favorite superheroes. For example, for Harry, while he was the boy who lived, he would have been a goner without Ron, Hermione, Dumbledore, and the entire Order of the Phoenix by his side. And while Luke, while he was the last Jedi, he actually had Han, Leia, Chewie, and the entire alliance helping to topple the Empire. And while Iron Man does tend to prefer to, pardon the pun, fly solo, it's when he teams up with the Avengers that worlds are actually saved. See, it's these powers, when they're paired up, that they can make you and your team unstoppable. Just like those superheroes that we know, while they're powerful individually, they become stronger and they can actually do more than they ever could have on their own with the help of their team. So how do we do this? Well, it starts by knowing what I like to call your elemental style and understanding your team ecosystem. See, in nature, all living things rely on several different interdependent elements to help survive and grow. You need water to hydrate. You need trees and roots to grow so that way you can create shelter. You need fire to ignite and create warmth and light. You need earth to nourish and to support growth. And you need metal that can help circulate and cultivate. In ancient Chinese medicine, this is represented by the 5 Chinese elements: water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. All 5 of these elements interact with one another, and they're dependent on each other to thrive. But depending on the combo and how much or too little of each resource you have, they can both support and suppress each other in their growth. Think about it. Water feeds wood, right? Wood fuels fire. Fire helps form earth. Earth nurtures metal with its minerals, and then metal carries water, and the cycle continues. But also, water can extinguish fire. Fire can melt metal. Metal can cut wood. Wood can penetrate earth. And earth can absorb water. It's through this support and restriction that we actually create balance in our natural climate. But if there's too much of one or not enough of the other, that's where we can have imbalance and inharmony in our ecosystem. See, think about it. You need wood to fuel fire. But if that fire gets out of hand, gets a little too much, water is necessary to keep it from burning down the entire forest. However, if there's too much water, you can actually soak the wood and the earth so much that no new growth can happen. It's when you understand each of these elements and what's necessary to help create a healthy, flourishing, vital environment is when each role is in balance and in harmony with the others. So just like in the forest, in our human nature, we actually embody these same elemental behaviors in a way. They show up as physical and emotional stresses and strengths. When we're at our best, we're using our natural strengths, AKA our superpowers, to help support growth and evolution and a balanced human climate. But when we or one of our teammates is stressed, either our energy is sapped. A lot of you talked about kryptonite being negative energy. When that energy is sapped, or maybe when it's just a little bit too supercharged or extra, as I like to say, it's when we need the elements of one another and they need us. So that way we can find that balance in our team ecosystem. So that way we don't have any natural disasters, whether man or woman or otherwise. Right? I'm sure we can think about some of those disasters that may have happened in our teams over time. And often it happens when we are out of balance, out of alignment, resources are not being used in the most effective ways. Now, just like in nature, we all possess all 5 of these different elements, right? There's water in wood. Earth has minerals that help create metal. Though usually there's 1 or 2 that are more dominant for each of us, very similar to our Myers-Briggs or our DISC or even our Hogwarts house. And those dominant elements can influence who and how you interact with your team. They can influence who you find commonality and alignment with, as well as who might challenge, stress, or sap you. But once you understand these elemental strengths and stressors in yourself and your team, rather than letting certain people or circumstances sap your energy, you'll actually be able to tap into one another's powers. So that way you can bring out the best in each of you. So how do you do that? Well, it all starts by understanding your primary elemental style, as well as those of your teammates. I saw that Hannah dropped the worksheet in the chat. Definitely use that as we start to talk about and expose and shine a light on these different elements, because I want you to start to think about what element you might be, as well as what elements you also might have in your team, whether that's your work team, your family team, your friend team, or any of those places in between. So when we think about our ecosystem, water is the first element in the cycle. So I have a question for you, and this is our next poll. Do you love having long, in-depth conversations with other people where you're connecting at a deep level? Go ahead and answer that poll. Tell me whether or not you do or you don't. And it may very well be a sometimes. I'm usually a sometimes person for many of these. Again, because remember, we each have a little bit of everything in us, but there are those dominant ones. Looks like we have a lot of yeses coming in and some sometimes. That's a good balance. All right, let's see what the results tell us here. So it looks like about the majority of you said yes, you love having those long, in-depth conversations. Well, then you very well, my friends, might be a water. So when you think of water, what comes to mind for you? Post in the chat some words that come to mind. For me, I think of things like calm, fluidity, floating, deep, refreshing. That's a good one here. I like that. Go with the flow. Yes, ma'am. Well, just like the superhero Aquaman, if we think about water, a water can literally dive deep into life. Waters fill up on everything and everyone that they encounter. They're incredible listeners. They go at their own pace, though, and take everything in. They will stop to interact and touch and make connection with whatever or whoever crosses their path, like a flow of water. Waters also embrace a sense of playfulness, and they have a unique imagination because they take the time to stop and explore all the possibilities. So who here in the chat post, who here feels like they might be an Aquaman or an Aquawoman? If so, I want you to swim over to the chat over here and let me know if you think you might be a water primarily. And for those of you who maybe don't identify as a water, don't feel water, is there anyone bubbling up in your mind that you can think of in one of your teams, maybe who has water-like qualities? Jot that down on your worksheet. All right, so while waters tend to go with the flow, our next element, woods, they are planted firmly in the ground. So our next poll for you to see if maybe you might be a wood is, do you enjoy things like organizing, creating to-do lists, and marking those tasks off, ideally on time or even earlier? You just want to get it done. So let's see for that poll, maybe who feels like they might possibly be a wood. Yeah, okay. Got some woods here. Now, remember, if you find yourself that you're saying yes to many of these, that's actually okay. That means that you possess many of these qualities, just like we have in nature. And there may be times where they just show up more in certain situations or others. All right, looks like we have a pretty good result here. So let's see, it looks like about 54% of you feel that you are, in fact, a wood. And so I raise a branch to all of the woods out there. So, like our favorite tree hero, Groot, woods are always branching out and up. They're seeking to reach the top. A wood's mantra might be that if I am playing to win. Woods are fearless. They're determined. They are get things doners. They are like the roots of a tree. They'll push through any obstacle or obstruction. Nothing will stop them from growing and achieving. Woods are change makers who can visualize the big picture and can design solutions that move you forward and up. Woods can take the ideas that waters imagine, and they can actually set and put a plan into action. So for all of my woods out there, let me see who you are by typing "I am Groot" into the chat. All right, Heather, we have some Groots. Hannah's a Groot. Devin, yes, I love it. Branches up. And are any of you, maybe who aren't feeling like you're Groot, are you sprouting any thoughts about the woods that you might have in your life based on their root attributes and behaviors? Yeah, take note of that. While waters are all about the deep thinking and the deep connections, and woods are about the action, the doing, the next element are fires. Fires are here to light the spark of excitement in our lives. So let's find out who our fires might be that we have here in today's call. Yes, do you constantly love meeting and engaging with new people and new experiences and new activities? New, exciting, joy, fun. My husband, Rob, our communications expert, he is absolutely a fire. He loves new experiences, new people, and having new conversations and learning new things. All right, wonderful. So let's see what the final results show us here. Who are our fires? It looks like we have about 20% of you. All for it. You need fires in your life. And actually, if you are a water or a wood, having a fire on your team is going to have tremendous benefit when their superpowers maybe become a little too strong or weakened by stress. Just like Fantastic Four's Human Torch, a fire is going to show you that life isn't all about deep thoughts or goal achievement. It requires moments of fun, celebration, and joy. Fires are optimistic, they're energetic, and they love to celebrate with others. I always like to say, if life is a party, then the fires are the one that are throwing that party, or they are on the stage cheering you on or singing karaoke next to you. A fire's primary desire is to have fun and to laugh. They seek excitement and new experiences with others along by their side. And they can actually help shake other elements out of states of stubbornness or boredom or worry because they are about the fun. They have that energy, that excitement. And they can be very committed and loyal to whatever, whoever they're with, though, in that moment. When the next thing happens or the next new exciting thing is there, they're gone. So for all of my fires, if you are a fire, type "flame on" in the chat, just like our Human Torch here. And for those of you maybe who aren't as sparky as a fire, I am definitely not a fire. I would say note anyone that you think shows flickers or sparks of fire qualities in your life or on your team. See, there's Rob flaming on. There he is. Now, element in our system is Earth. And so let's see who our Earths might be today. The question is to you, Do you be the person that people rely on for help and are willing to help, however, in whatever way you can, regardless of your commitments? Looks like we have a lot of Earths coming in here. Yeah. Let's see. Have some Earths happening. I'm not seeing any no's, so that's good. It's always sometimes. That's true. We all need a little bit of Earth in us and in our lives, right? We're not going to completely disregard the value and the beauty of the Earth. All right, let's show results. Beautiful. So it looks like about 57% of you said, yes, I do like to be that person that's reliable, that's helpful, and will always step up whenever I'm needed. So just like our Mother Earth, staying grounded and in harmony is what is essential to Earths on our teams. These individuals, they thrive in cooperative teams and environments. They're extremely generous, tender, caring, understanding, and thoughtful. Conversation and connection are two vital needs to an Earth to stay grounded. They can often focus on helping others complete their projects or fulfill their goals, and can be dedicated workers, contributing in whatever way they're needed. However, they are not workaholics like Woods are. They're not get things doneers above all else. They want to ensure that things get done so that you don't have to stress about it. Their goal is to be dependable and supportive so that everyone feels seen, heard, and nurtured. So for those of you that are feeling a little earthy based on this, let me know in the chat if you feel that you might be an Earth. And for those of you maybe who didn't say yes emphatically, I am an Earth, but identify, you know what, there are moments where I'm a little earthy, or I definitely know some Earths on my team, those people that are grounded, nurturing, and they focus on those harmonious connections. Write those down in your worksheet. Yeah, Nicole, exactly. In some circles, sometimes we take on a little bit more of the attributes of another element in certain circles based upon what we need or what other people need. And then lastly, while our Earths are here to nurture others, metals have goals of higher achievement. They're here to make everything and everyone better. And so for our last poll here, I want to know, who might my Earths be? Do you consider yourself someone who has very high standards and expectations for yourself and for others? Got a lot of metals here. A lot of metals coming in hot. All right, this looks like a pretty good percentage of participation. Let's see what the results reveal, who our metals might be here today. Yeah. All right, so just like our hero Iron Man, to a metal, details, structure, a desire to learn, see, and do more are at the heart of what drives them. Metals seek one-on-one connections with like-minded individuals. They seek a higher level of understanding and being. Like Tony Stark, metals often have extremely high standards for themselves and others, and they prefer clarity, decisions, precision, and closure. They do not like having things left inconclusive or open-minded. To a metal, change is something that they wholly embrace because it symbolizes growth, evolution, and progression. And while they can be kind and thoughtful in their own way, metals don't actually seek to be liked. They are here to make you and the world better. So for my metals out there, some of you that are feeling like you're very metally, I would love you to post "I am Iron Man" or "I am Iron Woman" in the chat. Let me know who my fellow metals are. And for those of you maybe who aren't necessarily identifying as that hard man or woman of steel, if you will, or unobtainium, I don't know what Iron Man's metal is made of, who in your life can you think of that might have a singular, passionate pursuit of innovation and growth? People who disrupt norms and challenge current ways of doing and being. Think about those people that you have in your life and on your team, and write that down. Oh, yes. Sierra knows me very well. I'm a metal through and through with a little bit of wood. All right. So as I said before, you notice that you may have answered yes to more than one of these polls. And you might be thinking, okay, well, maybe I'm just a combination of all of them. And that is in fact true. We each have all of these elements within us. Think about it just like in nature. There just happens to be one or two that show up the most for us, where we feel the most heroic and strong. You can and you should, just like Nicole mentioned, you can and should use each one of these elements when the moment calls for it. But it's really important to understand where things can maybe go a little awry. See, so while those previous traits and skills that we looked at are the ones that show up when you and your team are your most balanced, heroic selves, when each of you is stressed, these same superpowers can actually create a little imbalance in your ecosystem. And it can result in having a little bit of excessive use, depleted resources. So while we know when you're great, it's also helpful to know when you might struggle or have some strife or energy depletion, right? When kryptonite kicks in. So for our waters, since they can go deep, when they are stressed or their energy tank is depleted, they can sometimes feel as if they are all alone and isolated from the world. It's as if you were sitting at the bottom of a pool looking up. Everything can appear and sound distorted or unclear or fuzzy. You know, think about like the Peanuts teacher. Everything is just wah, 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 wah. You're not really hearing or seeing or understanding what might be happening. You might even hear a water utter the words, "I can't even," right now, when they might be feeling overwhelmed, or maybe they're even too caught up in their own thoughts or feelings. If we think about Aquaman, if he stayed underwater and never came up to the surface, he would actually struggle to find connection and compassion and understanding with others that lived on the land. He would only think about himself and his fellow Atlanteans. He needed to come up to the surface every once in a while. So if you're a water, what do you think maybe one or two of your go-to reactions or feelings are when you're stressed? You don't have to necessarily post them in the chat, but if you want to, feel free. How do you typically react when you're feeling a little under the water, in too deep, if you will? And if you know a water, what have you observed about them in the past? How might you spot when these stress behaviors show up? Is it that they want to go too deep into the details, spending too much time getting to understanding and reassurance? And can you sense maybe when they're in too deep, when they might be drowning in their own thoughts or feelings? With our woods, you've heard the term stubborn like a log, right? Well, that's actually what can happen to our determined problem-solving woods. While they are go-getters and will focus all of their energy and effort to grow and change and take action, a wood is actually not easy to move. They have planted their roots and are moving on up, whether you're coming along for the ride or not. Once a decision or a judgment is made, it is really hard to change a wood's mind. Remember, they're dug in deep. Though they will actually welcome the debate. They love good debate. Woods can be independent, bold, strong, and also unapologetic. Woods can have a tendency to not sugarcoat feedback, and they can often get right to the point. Woods don't play games. What you see and what you hear is what you get. So if you're a wood, what maybe tends to be your go-to stress reaction? Do you just double down, digging those roots in even further? Do you stay the course, shooting on up and sticking to that plan and maybe deal with the consequences later? Do you maybe speak your mind with not necessarily thinking about how it's impacting other people? And if you know a wood, what are maybe a few of the behaviors that you tend to see or you experience with the stressed woods in your life? Are they unwilling to hear new ideas? Do they speak first and then maybe possibly apologize later? Do they become micromanaging taskmasters, trying to get that work done? Think about that and now note down a few of the stressed signs that maybe you see with the woods in your life. So with our fires, while they may flame on and appear to have endless energy and optimism in a pursuit of what sparks joy and excitement, they can also flame out if they're going a little too strong for a little too long. In addition, with all of these embers going, fires can often appear as flighty or non-committal because they're constantly sparking new flames of pleasure and joy, and they're jumping and bouncing from one new thing, one new idea to the next. That can often make them struggle to stay focused because they just have so many things that they want to see and do and meet and experience, right? And because of that, it can be difficult for the non-fires in their life to keep up. Again, I say this from personal experience. My husband is a fire. I am more of a metal and a wood. I'm a little bit more controlled, detailed, reserved, trying to stay focused, whereas he is just a ball of ideas and excitement. So for those of you who are a fire, when you think about it, when have you struggled with focus? Or when have you felt that maybe you're burning the candle at both ends? And how has that shown up for you? Do you sometimes then struggle to pay attention and be present in the moment? Or do you often feel that you are running out of gas, that your light is flickering? And for those of you who know a fire, can you spot when your fire maybe is starting to build to a little bit too much of a blaze, or maybe when their flame is a little bit low on oxygen and they're starting to fizzle out? What does that look like to you? With our earths, while they are in their balanced state, they're nurturing, supportive, grounding, and nourishing to both themselves and others. When they are stressed, they can quickly become depleted of their vital nutrients. In their desire to continually encourage and help others, earths often can sacrifice their own resources and needs in service to them, and they can then become overextended or even miss or postpone their own deadlines, their own commitments, or their own priorities for other people. By wishing everyone to feel seen and heard, earths may also say what they think others want to hear, hesitate to actually speak up or share what their truth is because they don't want to rock the boat. Earths can also be resistant to change since it can create an imbalance, even if temporarily, in that harmonious ecosystem that they wish to continually create and cultivate. Remember, a resource-constrained Earth cannot feed and nourish its own ecosystem. And because of that, the entire team climate might suffer when that happens. So if you are an Earth, where and when have you found yourself a little bit depleted and maybe a bit overextended? Maybe where you're saying yes to everybody else and forgetting to say yes and feed and nurture yourself and your needs. And if you know an Earth, in what ways have or can you spot when an Earth maybe needs to be replenished, when they're not speaking up, when they're avoiding change, or maybe they're taking on a little too much? And then lastly, with our metals, while our iron men and women rarely get flustered or let their suits get scuffed or tarnished, when they are stressed, they can keep that hard armor on just a little too long. And because of that, metals can often appear cool, distant, or even apathetic. Again, remember, they're not here to be liked. They're here to make you better, come hell or high water. Because they seek order and structure and growth above everything else, they can often focus on getting something perfect instead of getting it done for at any given time. And they can often push people beyond what they're comfortable, feel capable of doing. They have those high standards, and they believe that what they're doing is for the greater good of all, whether you are ready for it or not. And I know that Rob will probably emphatically shake his head. He's like, yes, I know, Amy does this to me all the time. So as a medal, when has maybe your pursuit of perfectionism or getting it right impeded your ability to actually get it done? And when maybe have you found yourself being a little overly critical of others and even with yourself, and possibly struggled with finding connection and compassion with other people in pursuit of that greater why in being? And if you know a medal, can you spot when these pursuits interfere with their ability to embrace other people's ideas, to even see or hear their struggles, or maybe get too caught up in the details or their way of doing something? Make a note of that. Analysis paralysis. Yep, that's my middle name. All right, so when we think about so far, you have an idea of each element's superpowers when they're balanced, and also how stress can impact their ability to perform at their best. So when these moments of stress happen, though, each of the elements on your team can help one another to recalibrate and rebalance your ecosystem. See, because while individually you each have your superhero traits, you truly thrive and become heroic when you assemble your team and you collaborate for good together. When a water's in too deep or they're feeling overwhelmed and isolated, a medal will help bring them back up to the surface by taking a broader perspective on a situation. An earth can serve as a model for finding empathy and understanding with other people. Though inspiring, waters sometimes need the superpowers of a fire to help them spark new ideas, new encounters, and new conversations, and help them focus on creating connection with others versus just focusing and getting deep in their own feelings and perceptions. And when waters can struggle to turn ideas into action and maybe feel a little overwhelmed or in too deep in the details, that's when they can recruit a wood, because a wood is going to help them take those ideas and help them create a plan to move that idea forward and make it happen. So if you're a water, when you're stressed, who might you turn to for heroic support? And if you're a water, or if you know a water, what of your heroic superpowers might you want to activate to help bring that water back up to the surface? With woods, when they can be too hard to move, or they're just knocking down all the trees in their way or squashing ideas on their path, a water will actually help a wood find balance through a little bit of patience and listening and slowing down. A medal can help strengthen a wood's power through their calm demeanor and help them provide reflection and that higher perspective. An earth can remind a wood of their humanity to keep them grounded and in touch with the earth and have a little bit of empathy and compassion for others. And when that wood is stressed or overworked, a fire is going to help them reset through a little bit of play, celebration, and a positive attitude. So if you're a wood, who might be your go-to heroes? How might you engage with them and when? And if you are supporting a wood, how can you be a hero to those woods in your life and on your team? What superpower might you employ to help them soften up a little bit and learn how to bend? With our fires, when they're flaming a little too much or their fire starts to fade, a wood can help them stay focused and on task with calm and clarity. If they're burning the candle at both ends, a water can help douse them a little bit and remind them about slowing down and resetting before they jump to the next thing. If they're distracted and they're having their attention pulled and they're struggling to focus, a medal is going to help them find that balance and tune in to listening skills. And then the grounding energy and influence of an earth will help a fire ensure that their attention is focused not just on the situation, but on the substance and being fully present in the moment, not thinking about what the next cool thing might be. So if you're a fire, How can you be a fire tender and make sure that you're not raging hot or fizzling out? Who might you lean on? Who might you recruit from your team? And if you're a fire ally, what, where, and when can you ensure that your fires are staying energized, yet also focused, balanced, and present? And for our earths, when they're depleted, when they're overextended, or maybe overly agreeable, saying yes to everyone else and not themselves, a water can actually help an earth take the time to avoid those hasty yeses, teaching them to slow down, to assess, as well as to show them how to tune into and to speak their true voice, their truth, their feelings, and their desires. With woods, their structure and their drive can keep an earth motivated and focused, as well as ensure that they're not overloading their work to-dos. A fire is going to shower an earth with encouragement and support, and they're going to motivate them to continue to get things done. And while an earth can be risk averse and sometimes uncomfortable with change, by teaming up with a metal, their wisdom, their insights, and their knowledge can help provide comfort and reassurance to an earth when change feels a little too unsure. All right, so as an earth, what elemental resource might you need to operate best for both you and others? And what can you do to be an elemental superhero to those earths in your team and in your life? Start to jot some of those down. And then lastly, when our metals have their armor on and they're struggling to connect, or they are too rigid in their way of doing things, an earth will actually help them push beyond their comfort zone and remind them of the power of connection and compassion and acceptance. A water is going to teach them and remind them how to go with the flow and to be a little bit more flexible in their structure and their standards. A wood is going to help them with their need for structure, but keep them focused on completion over perfection. And then a fire is going to remind the metal of the joys of laughter and new experiences, even if it's for the sole purpose of having fun. Achieving the greater good, sometimes you gotta let loose every once in a while, right? So as a metal, what do you think that you might need to open your mask or to loosen up your armor? Who could you recruit and assemble from your team to help you find balance between what is as well as what could be? And for those of you who have metals in your life, how can and in what ways can you help metals maybe soften up a little bit, find a little bit of flexibility in what they're doing, as well as maybe a little bit of fun in their pursuit of excellence? All right, so that is the introduction. It was a long piece, but it was just an introduction to these 5 elements: water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. We looked at how each of the elements can have the ability to strengthen or strain one another, whether they're overwhelming or whether you're sapping resources. You've seen how those elemental strengths can supercharge each other, how stress can create overuse or depletion or disharmony and misalignment, and how your individual team members and yourself can use your elemental superpowers to make each other heroic. It all starts and ends with understanding the elements on your team and knowing when you and they are strong and spotting when each of you are under stress. So if you haven't already, I would say on your worksheet, make sure that you start to identify what your dominant primary elemental style might be, and maybe your top 1 or 2 superpowers that you're going to tap into. I also challenge you to think about the possible elements of others that you may have in your life and on your teams, in work, life, friends, etc. It's actually a fun exercise to do with all of them. And think about how you can be a hero for them when maybe their powers get a little too strong, or maybe when their energy is weakened by stress, when their kryptonite kicks in. And also think about who you can assemble so that they can help you recalibrate and maintain that balanced, thriving team ecosystem, that squad of elemental heroes and allies. Remember, there's no one best superhero, whether it's in comics, on the screen, or even in real life. Each of you have elemental strengths as well as struggles or weaknesses. No one person can succeed solely on their own, regardless of how powerful they may be. Heck, even Superman had his kryptonite and needed support and rescuing every once in a while, right? It's through this shared awareness of your own and your team's ecosystem and creating your own super squad that you can better connect, understand, and support one another and find balance in this human nature and often unpredictable climate that we're all working in. But you can do it by doing it together. And if you want to dig just a little bit deeper and maybe discover what your actual dominant element style is, you're invited to take our free elemental style assessment. You can either scan the QR code or you can write down the URL knowyourelement.com. Also, if you take it, think about sharing both of the link and the results with others in your team and your life so that you can start to understand each other's strengths and struggles and begin to devise a plan for how you are going to show up heroically for one another and create your own extraordinary team of elemental heroes. And so at this point, I want to hand it back over to Hannah while she leads our Q&A, but I want to thank all of you, and I hope that you had fun learning a little bit more about your elemental style and how you can be a superhero for yourself, as well as how others can be them for you.
Well, that was a lot of fun. Thank you so very much. And I have been sharing the slide deck as well as the handout in the chat as a downloadable PDF, as actually 2 downloadable PDFs. If you're not able to download them, please send me an email. I did share my email address there as well, hpap@americanstaffing.net. It doesn't look like we have any questions, which means you did a wonderful job covering the content. But let's do our closing slides, and then I will toss the mic back to you to say goodbye to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would love to thank Amy Akowski, Founder and Chief Evolution Officer of Painted Porch Strategies, for today's presentation. It will be available in the on-demand library by the end of this week. And yes, we did record it. If you have questions that you didn't want to ask in the chat during the live program, please feel welcome to email Amy at onthepaintedporch.com, and she would be happy to take those questions offline. If you joined us for CE, please remember that we're also SHRM approved. You would go to their website and enter the activity ID that you see here on the screen, 23-72GUU. And if you hold an ASA certification, simply go to americanstaffing.net to claim your 1 continuing education credit for today's program. Finally, before you guys leave, please, you will automatically be redirected to an exit survey. I personally read every single one of your responses. I also share your feedback with Amy so she knows how she did today. And also some of the suggestions towards the end of the survey help me to plan our programming moving forward to make sure that those programs that you need, that you're looking for, actually happen. So please do take a moment to fill that out. It should take you about 3 minutes. Thank you all so very much. Amy, I'll toss it back to you to say goodbye and we can end the show.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for participating. Thank you for taking the time to think about and identify your own elemental style and those on your team. As Hannah said, if you do have any questions or you're curious about how you can use this or take it to that next level with your team, just reach out to me and I'm happy to help you answer. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. So I think that once we learn to work with and through and in support of one another, we can create some extraordinary teams in our life and our work and all of those places in between. So thank you, everyone.